in 40 minutes. And before that on BBC One, it's the Really Useful Show.
Looking forward to Christmas morning and putting together presents like this? Don't speak too soon. OK, guys, on your marks, get ready, get set, go.
I'm going to leave them to it. On today's Really Useful Show, avoid those Christmas Day tears with our tips on assembling those really difficult toys.
Good morning and welcome to the show.
Coming up live in the next 40 minutes.
The Really Useful Show viewer desperate to pay a gas bill, but British Gas won't let her.
Here at the Information Exchange, we've horrifying evidence of how these Santa masks could leave you scarred for many Christmases to come.
Today's great escape is very seasonal, if a little unusual. I've come out to Northamptonshire to try racing. Husky dog racing, that is. See you later. Hike on!
Oh yes, lots of reasons why you can't afford to miss Thursday's Really Useful Show.
First today, those not so easy to assemble toys. Check all this frantic activity behind me. After Santa's paid the visit, you know, this is a familiar scene, I know. You're surrounded by a pile of presents, sets of instructions, and children with long faces because you can't get the toys to work. A whole load of toys have just gone spattering over the floor there. Well, Really Useful Show viewer Tracy Bright and her family had lots of fun with this toy by it's the Barbie horse trailer here, and Tracy's actually on the phone now. Tracy, good morning.
Good morning.
You're looking at this toy, are you?
Yes.
Is it bringing back nightmares?
Yes, it certainly is.
How long did this take to put together for you?
4 hours in total.
4 hours?
Yes.
What was the problem?
Well, the main thing was that the whole thing comes in tiny little pieces to fit together, and nothing is complete. From the car to the seat belts, the trailer van, everything is in tiny little pieces, hundreds on a snapper frame, sort of like an Airfix model.
So did the job come down to you, did it?
Well, it was going to, but unfortunately I'm no good with instructions, so the whole thing went down to my mum.
To the rescue once again.
Yeah, she did.
Well, did she play with it, by the way?
No, she said that it nearly reduced her to tears, and she's really good with instructions, so it was appalling.
OK, well, Tracy, I hope you get something nice and simple this year and have a good time anyway.
Thank you.
Well, Mattel, who make the toy, told us that since producing the horse trailer 2 years ago, they've taken huge steps forward. They say that our commitment during 1997 is to make assembly time for all our accessories less than 30 minutes. Well, we've decided to see if they are right. We are putting Barbie and 2 other best-selling toys to our Are They Easy to Assemble test. So meet Ted, Mark and Stan, who started work on the toys at the top of the show. And I should just say these are no ordinary guys here. We've got a plumber, an electrician and a wood expert, so they should be skilled in this. How's it going, Ted? You've got Barbie's songbird carriage.
It's not too bad at the moment. Trying to fathom out which pieces are which.
Yeah.
It's, if somebody's not used to making models, aircraft models or anything like that, then I think they might have a few problems.
Yeah.
I've made a few in my days, especially when I was a child, you know, kid.
Have you put together toys for kids before?
I've tried to, yes. Not as small as this. I've had trouble with bikes before.
All right.
Following instructions.
Well, we won't take your time up, Ted, because you know the clock is counting. Mark, you've got the Playmobil Fort Glory.
I have.
How's it looking?
I'm not convinced all the bits are here actually at the moment.
Skeptic.
It doesn't appear to be in any sense of which order the bits are. There's going to be the same part for each different bits of forks in different packets.
Well, that's what you're aiming for.
Yeah.
Keep your eye on that. I knocked that up over breakfast, by the way.
Right, good.
Took me about 10 minutes, I think.
Okay.
Stan,
good morning.
You're on the Action Man LSV off-road vehicle.
That's right.
You're cruising on there. You're doing well.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
Identifying the bits is, I think, is going to be a problem. But I'll tell you something, it seems quite reasonable at the moment. The instructions
OK, well, Stan, That's what you're headed for. Good luck, and we'll come back to you at the end of the programme.
Thank you.
We'll rejoin the chaps then to see how they've got on. Merrin?
Well, Kay, I'm really sorry to be a party pooper so early in the festive season, but I felt that you ought to be told about these. They're cheap and cheerful Santa hats, but actually at £1.50 they're not particularly cheap, and they certainly aren't cheerful. Just take a look at this piece of film. We took these outside the studio this morning and just brushed a match against them, or against the beard rather. Now just imagine if that was Grandad's pipe or an overexcited child with a candle. Although we've speeded up the film, it took less than a minute, 50 seconds, for this Santa beard and hat completely to destroy itself. And you can imagine what that would do to a child's skin. Trading Standards officers in Essex and Hertfordshire particularly were so worried about these things that they want them withdrawn from the shops. Unfortunately, they can't be because there are no manufacturers identifying symbols inside, absolutely no labels of any description. However, there are probably, for all I know, hundreds of perfectly safe ones in shops up and down the country. So how can you tell the difference? Well, actually, it's fairly simple. Just take a good look at them. The material is extremely thin. In some cases, you can almost see through it. And probably a jolly good tug would tear this one in half. So do try and go for the safe ones if you can. Chris?
Thank you, Mary. Now, look at this. Remember these? Good old 7-inch singles, you know, vinyl 45s, complete with all the scratches and the clunks and the clicks. Lovely. Just added to the whole charm of them. But with modern sound systems being made without turntables, is it time to dump our old records, or could they be heirlooms of the future? Adrian Goldberg has been spinning a few crackly old discs to find out.
The vinyl countdown has begun.
It's the final countdown.
Just 20 years ago, British pop fans bought more than 80 million vinyl albums every year. Now that figure's shrunk to just 3 million, raising fears that little bits of plastic like this may soon be about to become redundant. I've always wanted to break a record. Now it seems I might as well.
Second-hand record shops like this one have been swamped by music fans offloading their old collections and converting to compact disc. So, if you've been looking to get rid of your old records, can you really turn them into money spinners?
Yes, Adrian, there's a booming market in second-hand vinyl at the moment, and it's more a question of what isn't collectible rather than what is. Virtually everything you've got is going to be worth something. It's not unknown for people to find things in their collections which are literally worth thousands of pounds. However, not all records are worth that amount. Generally speaking, all the rock greats, your Beatles, your Rolling Stones, your Queen, your David Bowies, your Elvises, all those records are worth hanging on to and having a little closer look to see if they're the ones that are going to get you that holiday in the Caribbean that you've always wanted. Now, something like this, you're looking at about £200. But they're records that are worth a lot more than this. The Beatles dominate the whole record collecting scene. Everything associated with the Beatles is going to be worth something. Now, with record collecting, often the things that make a record valuable are the details. This one has a gold label. If you've got one of these, it's proof that you've got one of the very first ones. Now, a record like this is worth £2,000. This is God Save the Queen on the A&M label. Now, this is worth about £2,500 sometimes. Herb Albert, who ran A&M Records, didn't like the fact that he had a spitting, swearing, snot-covered band on his record label, so he asked for all the copies to be taken out of the shops. However, a few sneaked out, and some very lucky people own copies.
But if you don't happen to be into punk rock and you'd be as happy in Bognor as Barbados...
These are easy listening albums, which a year ago would probably only be worth 50p. Now they're worth about £6. It's just an indication that prices go up and down with records all the time.
So how do you find out what your records are worth?
The best thing to do is to consult a specialist, and that normally means going to your local second-hand record store. But what you've got to remember is if they buy them off you, they're going to want to make a profit. So they're going to probably give you half or 2/3 of the real value. The other thing, of course, is to buy a specialist magazine and check what records are being sold for in that, or buy a rare record price guide, which is probably your best bet at the end of the day.
But even if you decide to hang on to your old vinyl, will you be able to find a turntable to play your records on? There are only 2 manufacturers left in Britain who make them on a mass scale, while most foreign-made hi-fis only allow you to play cassettes or CDs. So is there a market at all for the record player?
Oh, certainly. At the moment, the market is around about 500,000 units, both as separates and within systems. That has declined tremendously from around about 2 million, say, 10 years ago, or just more than that. If you want to keep playing your existing vinyl record collection, when you buy a new mini or micro system, make sure in the shop that you can get a turntable with it. From many manufacturers you can. Sales of separate record players of turntables are actually increasing at the moment. It's very hard to say what's going to happen in 10 years' time. You can expect it to become a hobbyist market, second-hand market, or specialist shops and specialist manufacturers. That, I would imagine, will continue for a good many years.
So, for the time being at least, it looks as though we will be able to keep on spinning those old vinyl discs. But if you think you have got a collector's item, our really useful advice is don't play it. No one wants to buy a worn-out record, no matter how rare it might be. If you want to make a mint out of your vinyl, keep your vinyl in mint condition.
I've got a gnarled old copy of Chirpy Chirpy Cheep Cheep at home and it's in mint condition. Well, would you play it? Now the consumer story I never thought I'd be dealing with. British Gas refusing to take money off its customers. Meet really useful show viewer Dawn Bradley. She's been trying to pay her gas bill for 6 months. She's pleaded with British Gas to take her money, but they keep sending her cheques back. Dawn joins us on the phone right now. Dawn, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, a lot of people dread getting a gas bill. You actually want one. Why?
Well, to put it plainly, we don't want to end up with an enormous bill at the end of it all.
What have you actually done to try and persuade British Gas to send you a bill?
We've had the meter read about 6 times. We've phoned them thousands of times. I've lost account of the number of times I've phoned them. We've actually sent letters. We've done everything possible and nothing. We haven't even had one letter in response from them.
And always at the back of your mind this dread that sooner or later a really big bill will arrive, making up for it all.
That's it. That's what we're dreading at the end. I mean, if you didn't get involved, I don't know how long it would have gone on for.
OK, thanks, Dawn.
Thank you.
Dawn there is not the only customer who's been ignored by British Gas. After 7 months without a bill, another of our viewers, Hilary Deneen, called them and was then deluged with demands. On November the 19th, this arrived, a bill for £230.80. She paid it the very next day. 3 days later, this arrived, a final demand for the amount she'd just paid. 2 weeks later, yes, you guessed it, another bill came, this time for £96.86. 2 days after that, another bill came for £109.99. It arrived on December the 12th, saying the money was due 11 days earlier. Well, Karen Thurtle from British Gas Trading will be explaining what's going on in just a moment. But first, let's talk to Hilary. Thanks for joining us. What explanation have you had for the fact that you've not been getting your normal quarterly bills?
I've actually had no explanation at all from British Gas for this.
And what kind of conversations have been happening over this period?
I've been very upset, actually, because the main thing is I wanted an apology from them, and they've been refusing one, actually.
And now you're stuck with this bill. I think it comes to about £437.
That's right.
British Gas are listening. Karen's sitting right next to you. What do you think this experience shows about her company and what's going wrong there?
Well, the main thing is the lack of customer service, to me. To be presented with over £400 worth of bills 2 weeks before Christmas is a very distressing thing, especially if you're an old age pensioner. And then to be refused an apology is heartbreaking. OK,
Karen, let me pick things up with you. Thanks for coming in to bat this morning. It can't be easy. No beating around the bush. Is your billing system in chaos?
Before I answer that question, I really have to say I'm quite happy to offer an apology today and to the other, we are sorry. Our billing system...
Come on, let's have the excuses.
Right.
I'm
no,
sure you're prepared with them.
I'm not going to give you excuses. I'm going to give you the truth. Our billing system is not in chaos. We have had some problems. We've moved our 19.2 million customers from 46 separate systems onto one. And although we've tried to do that as smoothly as possible with a minimum of impact on customers, unfortunately, and these two customers are an example of it, we haven't always managed to achieve that.
Karen, I'm glad you said that, because I wouldn't be doing justice to the many people that have called our information exchange with these kind of problems if I didn't push you a bit, because they think that there is obvious chaos there. Can we just go back to these specific cases? When will Dawn be getting a proper bill from you?
Well, Dawn's is a new house, and we had problems getting the meter details sorted out. One of my team were...
Well, you've had meter readers going round there, she says.
It's more complicated than that, which I'm sure your viewers won't want me to get into the nitty-gritty today.
But she'll get one quickly, will she?
She will be getting a bill, and she, in actual fact, has spoken to a member of my team this morning who's working hard to sort it out for her today.
Okay, now, on behalf of Hilary and all these viewers, can you give an absolute assurance this morning that if people do get one of those hefty bills because the regular bills haven't arrived, that you will allow them to sensibly spread their payments so they won't have that burden?
Absolutely. We are always happy to agree a payment arrangement with the customer, either through their bank account by standing order, direct debit, or alternatively, we've got a smart card that they can use in their local post office.
And is there anything practical that you can say to people who are watching this morning who haven't had a bill? I mean, what should they be doing?
They shouldn't worry. We are aware of a small group of customers who haven't got a bill, and we're in the process of getting those bills out to them. That's being sent with a letter so that we can say to the customers, contact us if you want to arrange to spread payment. And if they phone the number at the top of the bill, then the person who answers the call will be able to help them.
Hilary, very briefly, what do you think of what she said?
Well, I'm pleased to hear that you're trying to sort it out, and I'm pleased that we're not going to be forced to sign these awful direct debits.
Okay, Hilary, thank you. Karen, thanks to you. And thanks to Dawn on the phone. Okay.
Okay. Well, if you're still stuck for Christmas present ideas, how about something like my friend here? Think foliage. Gardening Week's Peter Seabrook has some useful advice on these.
Poinsettias, probably Britain's most popular gift. And over the next few days, literally millions of them will change hands. And it's not a terribly good time to introduce pot plants to the house, because in the winter the days are a bit dark and the nights very cold. I see them really as the equivalent of a broiler chicken, sort of factory farmed. These didn't exist in July. Cuttings rooted late summer and absolutely rocket up into growth to have them in full flower with us at this time of the year. And the closer they are together, the more they're pushed up and the cheaper they will be, and I think the less attractive. I'll come to that in a minute, because there's one other point where there's great discussion. Growers don't quite know whether to grow the pale green-leaved ones with the slightly lighter red colour, or the dark green leaf with the dark red. Quite honestly, if you've got a very well-lit room or in the sunlight, this dark one looks magnificent, but on a dull, rather miserable day, then you need the lighter colour. It just looks brighter. Now, if you're going to buy one, you'll probably get it in a sleeve like this. Do watch, first of all, to make sure that there aren't leaves falling off in the bottom of the pot. If these plants get a drop in temperature by 10 or 20 degrees, they just lose their lower leaves. So don't buy them from outside in the cold. And if you've bought them ahead of Christmas and are going to keep it for a day or two, very gently take the sleeve off in the way that I'm trying to demonstrate here to you. Just pull it over your arm, and away it comes, absolutely clean. If you don't do that, you can very easily crack the leaves. Let me just show you what that means. You see, if you have a plant like this, and as you take the cover off, you just snap that. You can see that that white latex comes out in a minute. It runs down the leaf, it goes brown, and it makes a very black, unpleasant mark. So you need to handle these with care. Quite honestly, I much prefer to buy a poinsettia from conditions like these. If it's grown in a greenhouse, it's settled down, it's got plenty of space, at least you're starting in the right conditions. And then when the person says, do you want it wrapped? Well, then I'm looking for a box, because if it goes into a cardboard box and then you take it very quickly to the car, you don't have any of that leaf damage. Take the sleeve home with you by all means and pot it up a bit later, or sleeve it up, I should say, a bit later. There are, of course, lots of different colours to choose from. I quite like the white. I think it's almost as festive as the red. And if you do give them the right conditions, they're likely to last 12 or 16 weeks, and of course the bright red looks a bit dodgy in March, and so you might like to think about the pink one at that time. So it needs to go on the lightest possible windowsill. You know they're tropical plants where they get plenty of sunlight, and we don't really have enough, so a very light windowsill and really warm. And then people say, what about the watering? Well, quite honestly, you wait until the compost has dried out a bit. Don't be afraid to knock the pot off. You know, I'm always doing this, aren't I? There, I've cracked a leaf. I've cracked a stem, and I'll show you what to do with that in a minute. There, that comes off, and you can just feel it and see how damp it is. And if it's damp, then just leave well alone. When it gets dry, give it a really good watering, and then leave it again. Now, you saw that stem cracked because I was handling it carelessly. If that happens and one drops off, it's almost a benefit on a big plant because you can just cut that in clean, burn it with a match, and then it will last in water for several weeks as a very good cut flower. So there's another tip for you. And with poinsettias, remember, don't buy one that's been checked by the cold and get it home very quickly. Be careful how you handle the leaves, because if they crack, you get that white latex sap coming out. And only water them when the compost has dried.
I don't know, he makes it sound so simple, doesn't he? Now, do you remember a little while ago, we ran an investigation into how long batteries last with the help of this little fellow? Well, yesterday we had a phone call from Mrs. Millwood in Kent. Oh, hold on, let's just turn him off. Never be upstaged by the animals. Phone call from Mrs. Millwood in Kent, who rang to say that she'd bought a whole load of rechargeable batteries for Christmas toys, only to discover that a lot of the toys don't take rechargeable batteries. Fair point, Mrs. Millwood. So we decided to check it out on your behalf with the British Toy Makers Guild. We spoke to Richard Nathan, who said there are all sorts of regulations surrounding rechargeable batteries, mainly designed to make certain that children don't damage themselves recharging them. The simple answer is that manufacturers wanted to get around those regulations, and they thought it'd be an awful lot easier just to keep the ordinary batteries in. So cold comfort, but I'm afraid that's the answer, Mrs. Millwood. Let's look ahead just for a moment to the new year, because in the new year, when we come back, we want to run a report on finding out-of-print books. Now, if you're like me, you've got one or maybe even two books that you yearn to read again that are out of print and that you can't find, in which case do get in touch with us and we'll ask our expert to see if he can find them. Call us with your favourite books. There's our telephone number now, and we'd love to hear from you. But as you can see, there's not very many of us, and there's an awful lot of you. So if you can't get through on our phone lines, why not write to us? And I'll be giving you the address a little bit nearer the end of the programme. Meanwhile, here's Kay.
Thanks, Mary. Now, I don't know if you can hear the rumpus from where you are, but there's a bit of banging and clattering going on at the other side of the studio there, and it's the boys and their toys, hard at it. And at this stage, I would like to report, I think Ted is in the lead with his Barbie Songbird carriage. Big smile, Ted. But we'll find out how they're getting on in 10 minutes' time. Countdown. Now, at this time of year, I wonder if this rings a jingle bell or two.
Christmas shopping on a Saturday afternoon. Auntie Beryl's Christmas outfit. Party games with the neighbours. Cooking the Christmas dinner. And doing the washing up. But only if you're away this Christmas.
Oh, they know how to rub salt in the wounds, don't they? Oh, that looks glorious. 500,000 people in Britain will be doing just that, giving the turkey a body swerve and taking off into the wide blue yonder. You tempted? Well, you have to be quick. Travel journalist Sarah Tucker is here to point us in the right direction. Any bargains still to be had, Sarah?
Well, yes, there are. If you want to go to the tour operator or if you want to go to a travel agent, Malta is still available. You can get a break there package holiday for about 7 days between £500 and £600. But apart from that, it is quite scarce on the ground. The most popular destination is still, as been in the past, Tenerife.
It's the nearest sun, isn't it?
Yes, it's cheap and cheerful, and it's all-inclusive. We do like the all-inclusives. And also cruises are proving extremely popular. There are still bargains out there, but you've got to hunt around. You know, go to CFAX or, as I said, contact the tour operator direct and see if there are cancellations.
Why do that rather than go to, you would advise that rather than go to a travel agent, would you?
Yes, I think they've got more up-to-date information than many of the travel agents do. So in the first instance, I'd advise going to the tour operator direct then rather than to the travel agent, yes.
Okay. What about any chance of cancellations? I mean, you're saying that Tenerife's very popular, but it's pretty fully booked, is it?
Well, yes, it's the most popular destination. I have heard that people are they have been able to get cancellations. I think what happens a lot is that people book very, very early for the destinations that they really want to go to, special destinations. So that's just after Christmas, which is a good idea. But loads of things can happen during the year. People can get pregnant, or they have change of heart, or they want to stay with the family. So cancellations are definitely a possibility. So it's well worth trying.
Now, you said bargains. I mean, we're not really talking bargains, are they? Because, I mean, they always whack on a premium at Christmas time, don't they?
They do, because they've got a captured audience. People do want to do something special for Christmas and increasingly New Year. People are now going away increasingly for Christmas and New Year rather than just Christmas or New Year. Also, they've got a longer holiday. Employers are now giving them sort of days after and before Christmas, between New Year, so that's a good thing. The exchange rate is also extremely good at the moment, and more tour operators are offering larger packages. So.
Any consolation prizes then for those of us who've kind of missed the boat or the flight or whatever?
Oh, the flight. Well, yes, there is. In fact, Eurostar are offering some very good deals.
Surprised me,
I know.
Yes.
But no, they are. They're offering very good deals between the 20th of December, which tomorrow, well, yes, it's tomorrow, and the 10th of January. You can get a package, a weekend package on Eurostar for £121, and that's for a family of 4, which is extremely good value. Also, if you want to, I think, buy someone a present, a travel present, you can get a day trip to Paris for £69, or a day trip to Brussels for £59.
That is sounding very, very tempting indeed. Sarah, thank you very much. Chris?
Well, whether at home or abroad, this time of year is all about surprises, and that's what John Nichol got during his latest Great Escape. He's been consumer testing a seasonal day out with a difference.
Today's Great Escape is both seasonal and unusual. It's normally associated with the wilds of Alaska or Siberia, but it's also Britain's fastest growing winter sport. Well, I've come out to the wilds of Northamptonshire to try my hand at husky racing. John, these guys don't look big enough to pull me, but how popular is sled dog racing?
Oh, it's really taken off. Our first race was in 1975 in Aviemore, and we had about 12 teams, and now we're hoping for nearly 200 teams this year.
Is it suitable for anybody?
We have lots of people taking part from all walks of life, all sorts of physiques, and we have disabled people taking part alongside us.
Well, it doesn't look like these guys are ready to take anybody racing at the moment, so where's the real team?
They're just out there. I think we'll let them in.
It's important to realise that these huskies aren't really pets. They're working dogs, and they need a lot of attention and exercise. This is the male dog.
This is the little boy, yes. Being greeted by his mother. His mother's that one there.
Right.
Standard greeting for the mother is to sort of half rip his head off.
Typical mother, then.
It's affectionate rather than anything else. That harness fits him perfectly.
Yeah.
He's nice and relaxed in it, and it's not putting any pressure.
Yeah.
And because of that, he's able to pull from the chest
Right,
here.
so he's not actually,
Not from the
like
neck.
a normal
No, there's
lead.
no pressure on his neck at all.
I think she likes me. Are you going to show me how it's done then,
Yeah,
John?
I'll show you how it's done. I think everybody else is nearly ready there.
Go on then, guys. I hope they don't go that fast with me on there.
This is the panic release which we'll be using.
After meeting your team, you get a quick briefing on the sled.
There you go.
Help!
They'll give you a little push, and you can feel how...
The brakes aren't very good!
Now you'll have noticed then that the steering is quite sensitive.
Yes, it is, yeah.
But when you're actually out with the dogs, you're following the dogs. You're not steering.
Right.
That's just to give you something.
I mean, when they go around a bend, they're just going to take me around a bend, and that's it.
Okay, the commands are ever so simple. You've got G for right, H for left, hike on, or you could shout rhubarb and custard. If you say it excitedly, they know. Once they're in harness, they're ready to work.
What about mush? I hear mush all the time on the film.
Mush is a word used because it's a corruption of march on, which is walk on, because of the connection of the French in that part of the world.
You're going to look after me today. So why is it only this one that's actually got the sensitive paws? Don't you put boots on a lot of them?
It depends. Sometimes we boot every dog.
Yeah.
It just depends on the course.
After a short demonstration, it's time to mount up.
But start with the brakes on.
Right.
And let them off as you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay? Give the dogs a bit of encouragement. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
At first, you're not really sure what to expect, and it can seem quite fast. But just let the dogs do the work and enjoy the ride. Despite John's advice, it quickly becomes apparent that the dogs are in charge, and they decide where they want to go.
Whoa, stand! That was great!
Where did Husky Dog racing originate from?
Came over from Alaska. The sport of actually racing them was started by gold miners who were bored and wanted something to gamble on.
So what's the difference between a Husky Dog and a normal pet?
A Siberian can survive quite easily in very low temperatures. It's got a few things to help it. It's got a waterproof guard coat, and then underneath it has a really downy, thick coat, not particularly at this time of year. The feet are quite well webbed. This is to help them spread out on snow and not fall through. I mean, they have quite long eyelashes. This is to keep the snow out. And also the ears are very hairy. Once again, this is to keep the snow out. So they're pretty well designed for a harsh environment.
How much would a typical day out actually cost me?
300 for a group of 6, which broken down isn't that bad. And also you've got to bear in mind that we need a lot of helpers as are here today. And you know, they have to bring all their dogs along as well. So it's quite an involved thing.
And if I actually get the bug and want to become involved, how would I go on to actually partake of the sport?
You can always contact the Siberian Husky Club of Great Britain via the Kennel Club.
Well, I think these guys look as though they could do with a bit more exercise. Shall we go and have another go?
Yep.
Well, Husky racing has been really good fun. You really will enjoy the day out, especially if, like me, you're a dog lover. If you want to give it a go, these are the things to bear in mind. The course costs £300, but if you share the day out with friends, it really does work out good value. Prepare to get a bit muddy and wet. You'll need warm clothing and stout boots. For more information, contact the Siberian Husky Club of Great Britain. Hike on and have a great day out.
Well, half an hour ago, Siberia looked like quite a good option for the lads in the studio here, who we set the challenge of assembling all these toys. But I have to say, they are doing very well now, Ted, Mark and Stan. And Ted's the star, I think. Ian Scott is here too from the British Toy and Hobby Association to do a bit of judging. But Ted, all I can say to you is, ta-ra! Well done. How did you find it?
For a person who's done models before, it isn't too bad, but it could do with more information, numbers on all the pieces, so that
that's on the instructions.
On the instructions, so that you know exactly what piece goes where.
Right. Okay.
I do find it flimsy though. It's rather flimsy.
Bit
toy.
fiddly. Yeah. I mean, you say you've done models before, and you're a plumber to trade, aren't you? So you're pretty handy. What about someone who's not quite?
If somebody's not quite proficient, then you know it'll be a bit of a job. Also, I've been given a pair of scissors, which wasn't an ideal item for this, because to get the parts apart would be ideal to use a craft knife of some sort, and of course somebody would have to be very proficient with a knife to cut off the pieces and not the fingers. That's the main thing you've got to bear in mind.
It has to be said though, Ian, Mattel said that, you know, they cut it down to half an hour, and there you go, Barbie and her songbird carriages in style in half an hour.
You've done very well. I think it's tremendous, actually. And I give top marks for that. First rate, and I'm sure Mattel will be delighted to know about that. Could I just make a point about the sprues here, which this is where you had the problems breaking off. Could I just say, of course, there are little sort of sharp pieces left, so it would be important that Mum or Dad threw these straight away so that they don't cause any harm to a younger child, perhaps, in the family.
Okay, well, Ted, well done. By the way, £45 this will cost you. So just yes. Let's move along here to Mark and see how he's getting on. He's got the Playmobil Fort Glory. Not quite finised. Mark, how are you doing?
Well, it's actually harder than it looks. The instructions aren't particularly clear. And to further compound the matters, I've actually found an extra bit. Normally there's a part missing. We've actually got an extra roof. So somebody is going to be disappointed this Christmas. And also, they do give you a large wall chart or picture, which is both sides.
Yeah.
But really, it has actually got the fault on there, but it doesn't actually give you much information.
Right.
And a finished picture of the thing would actually be a much better idea.
Yeah.
And there are lots of small parts, and I think if you had to put this together on Christmas morning with lots of kids screaming, it could be quite tricky.
I mean, when you actually get the package, I mean, the packages are down there, they have in the tiniest letters, and I think this is the same for all of them. In fact, this one doesn't even say assembly required.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, and it is actually quite difficult. All it says on the packet is not suitable for under 36 months and 4 years and over. And if Granny bought this for a 4-year-old and gave it to them and said, here we are, son, put this together, I think they'd get very disappointed on Christmas morning.
I mean, you know, they're supposed to be adult assembly as opposed to giving them to the kids.
Yes, I think that probably could do with a little more information on the package to that extent. I think the idea of saying it's 4 years, when it's assembled, it would be great for the 4-year-old. I would imagine a 10-year-old, say 8 to 10, could probably cope with this. Children that age usually can manage these things.
What about this extra part that you're handling there?
I'm just sort of thinking about the parent who has a toy like this. I think it's quite important they do check that all the parts are there. Now, this is quite amusing to think that we've got a piece extra, but someone, as Mark has said, someone elsewhere might find they're a piece short. So it might be worthwhile, even a thing like this, just checking it out before Christmas Day.
Because it'll definitely be the toy that's wrong and not you, Mark. Yes.
You do get a bed so you can have a lie down when you finish.
You'll need it. You keep going, boy.
Okay,
well, let's
before
just
we
go
move-
over and see
Yes,
how
okay,
Stan's
I'll mention
doing.
this,
because I'd hate to leave you out, Stan. You've been working so hard there
great.
on your off-road vehicle.
Yeah.
Oh, you're getting Action Man's trousers on. I think we'll have to shield it then.
That's right, yeah.
How's it going?
It started off quite well, but I got a bit too ambitious and I went too far forward a little bit and sort of, then I found that I couldn't, I found that what you really got to do is follow the instructions 1 to 9 or wherever it is, otherwise you assemble a part and then you can't get the earlier part in.
How'd you find the instructions?
Quite good, you know, it just said what the bits are and the actual diagrams are quite descriptive, you know, they're very good. So yes, it's okay. Yeah, but
How far have you got to go, do you reckon?
another quarter of an hour, 20 minutes. All the little strips to put on, you know, the cosmetic bits. But
the decals.
That's right. Yeah.
This is just the way it goes, though, Ian, isn't it? I mean, you were actually saying earlier we're going to probably see more of this sort of self-assembly.
I think so. It's the way the trend is going. You see that there are quite large packs that these have come in, and there are new rules in Europe about the amount of packaging that you use. It's going to cost more, and so manufacturers are going to tend to try and reduce their packaging. So I fancy there will be much more of this type of thing coming around. Another complication here, of course, was being in the European Union, we have it in many languages.
Well, listen, Ian, guys, thank you very, very much. As you say, there's going to be more of this, Ian, but in a few days' time, you'll be able to get lots of practice, won't you? Merrin.
Well, Kate, according to our viewers, all your boys can congratulate themselves. We've had loads of calls sympathising. My favourite from Martine in London, who said that 4 adults spent 5 hours putting together a Barbie picnic van last year, and one of them was a qualified civil engineer and one was an architect, so I think our boys have done incredibly well. Now, just before I go, the latest instalment on a story that you first heard on the Really Useful show, the genetically engineered maize. It now turns out that the powers that be in Europe decided shortly after we went off the air yesterday that genetically engineered maize now can be imported into Britain, and shipments are going to start immediately. Unfortunately, you won't know if you're eating it because the products that contain it, like crisps, snacks, biscuits and so on, are not going to be labelled. Well, I promised you earlier on our Really Useful Show address, and here it is. It's the Really Useful Show, P.O. Box 5620, Birmingham, B57RE.
Well, that's about it for today.
We're back tomorrow. You don't have to self-assemble it. We'll do it for you. And we'll have the economy eggs that are exactly the same as deluxe eggs, but cost far less.
And Noel Edmonds and the team choose their favourite gadgets and gizmos. So join us then.
Bye now.